Phin Barnes is the next person up. He's a partner at First Round Capital. Obviously killing it, great thinker, and they're doing some super exciting things right now in the content space that is really interesting and stuff I love to read. So super thrilled to have him chat about that experience.
And this talk, by the way, is all confidential, so no tweeting, no hashtags. It's like the secrets of how we do this stuff. So I'm Phin Barnes. I'm a partner with First Round here in New York. We're a seed stage venture capital company that decided we wanted to try to become an editorial machine in some ways. And so I wanted to kind of walk you through where that idea came from and give you a sense of the impact that it's had on our business and on our community, the entrepreneurs that are building awesome companies. Sorry, I'm being too quiet. The whole talk's confidential. So we decided to launch an editorial thing called First Round Review. We called it the Harvard Business Review for startups. And so I figured since many of you probably haven't read it yet, I would start with some results. So we launched it in July, and to date we've had close to 1 million uniques and close to 2 million page views. And like tens of thousands of likes and retweets and shares and so forth. So we feel like we're resonating with the audience. But where this all came from is First Round, we believe in building a community of entrepreneurs rather than a portfolio. And we believe in sort of peer-to-peer entrepreneurship rather than the traditional model, which is sort of a VC sits in the middle as a human information router, and then all the entrepreneurs sit around the outside, and as they have questions, the VC sort of pretends to know the answer, but he's actually just asking the other entrepreneurs that he works with, and goes back and then tells the entrepreneurs, oh, this is how you acquire users on Facebook, and so forth. So we spent from 2007 until this past summer building a closed community. And we did this with online products, offline events. We hold basically an event a week at this point. And bring in great speakers from outside our community as well as old speakers from inside our community. And the result of that was lots of learning, but all behind sort of this curtain. And so in May of this past year, we sort of came off our CEO summit, and we had a bunch of requests from our entrepreneurs, our CEOs, to share the content that we had created for CEO Summit, and in general, the content we were creating. And we had this recognition that the great thing about knowledge is if I know something and I tell you, I still know it and can use it, but now you know it, and so it sort of benefits everybody if we could distribute this knowledge. And so we focused on the same things we always focused on for our internal community, which is actionable, tactical advice for entrepreneurs, how to build better technology companies from 0 to 18 months, and how to win as a founder. And so that's what we really focused on. So what I thought I would do for this audience is sort of put together, I talked to the writers that we have. We have one person on the editorial staff, and then 2 people that write sort of freelance, and then also the guy who manages that team, about some of the lessons that they've learned, and hopefully those lessons will be actionable and tactical advice that those of you that are creating editorial can use. And so I wrote them down so I wouldn't mess them up. So the first thing that we learned about this strategy is you need to experiment, but at the same time you need to have a long-term commitment, because you'll fail a lot when you try to create things. So content for us, we view it as a hits-driven business, and the way you win in a hits-driven business is you get lots of at-bats. And so what we've tried to do is, when we started this, we handed the keys to somebody, and we said, we believe in this strategy, we want you to test it. He took a piece of content, which we had created for a CTO Summit. He had a piece written, and that piece, we got lucky. The first one was sort of a hit. We got 60,000 views, and it sort of started to travel around our community internally, and then also sort of we started getting compliments from the broader startup community about the quality of this piece. And then we started to really lean into this, and rather than just taking content, we started to create that content. So commitment to long term, because you're going to fail a lot. That was the first one. Product, so treating every article like a product and crafting it as such, and iterating on that based on the audience feedback. Knowing a secret, so understanding what your audience wishes could be whispered in their ear sort of as they're working, and trying to deliver that. And then having a very specific goal that has to do with quality and resonating with your audience, rather than posting something 3 times a week, something like that. So nothing to do with frequency and everything to do with resonating with the audience. So those were the things that we learned in this journey. And first round review continues. We're going to keep investing in it. Hopefully some of you will read it and get some value out of it. Yeah, so that's our editorial journey. Thanks.
All right, so great talk, super interesting. Nice to facilitate conversation. Great takeaway there, thank you. For me too, by the way, I'm also a content person, so yes, questions?
Just wondering, you represent a lot of firms. Do you worry about giving away the competitive advantage to other companies that aren't based, that you're not invested in? And do you have certain content you share only internally with your investment firm?
No, absolutely. That was the biggest reason we didn't do this sooner. We talked about it, we were worried about that. We thought that we might degrade the community that we built. And what we found is there are certain things that we see on our internal network that we certainly wouldn't want to share and want to make sure are confidential. So when a CEO is asking, my co-founder's not pulling her weight, what do I do? Like that's something we don't want to share broadly. But when we have, what's the structure of a perfect technology interview? How do you, if you have, what are the costs that product managers don't account for in their process? So there's some things that are more general, and where the value in the advice has to do with how well you execute against it versus sort of some secret sauce. I think that's how we kind of draw that line. And the way we do all of this stuff is we encourage content to be created in a confidential environment. When we think it's great, we go to the person who created it, so the talk at CEO Summit, or something someone said at a dinner that we hold, and we'll ask them, would you be okay if we turn this into a review article? We create the article, we give them full editorial approval, and then we publish it. So we're always sort of making sure we don't violate that confidentiality.
Any other questions?
So you mentioned having a lot of these closed events and creating content. I'm curious how you feel that translates. Do you create any content out of those events? Are those kind of the starting points for a lot of the content you're creating, or is that generating themes? Like, how do you take that kind of one-time event and turn it into repeatable content?
Yeah, so the first test we did was a talk from Kellen, actually, the CTO of Etsy, gave a talk about their efforts around female engineers at our CTO Summit. And we took that and turned it into an article.